back for another episode of Feeding Our Faith. I'm Father Jeff Pro, and with me today to help us in dessert is Jara Schlossberg. And she's going to be helping us with two different desserts. The first one is, actually both of them I've learned from my mom. The first one is apple dumplings, and the other one is a pumpkin pie cake. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got some Granny Smith apples that we've peeled and quartered. These Granny Smith apples, they have a little bit of a tart texture to them. And what we're going to be doing, Jerry, I wonder if you would open up this. We will be using actually crescent dough, Pillsbury crescent dough, and can you hand or?
I think I got it.
All right. And we'll be using that as a part of the dumplings. Now the dumplings are real simple. We've got sugar, there's going to be the apples, the crescent dough around them, as well as some melted butter, cinnamon, and sugar. But there is something which is actually a bit of a surprise to it, and we will get to that surprise a little bit later. If you want, I can take care of that. And the crescent dough, a lot of times you'll see different kinds. The low fat or the reduced fat I found does not work real well, and so probably avoid the reduced fat or the low fat ones. But what you'll do is you kind of roll it out here like this, and kind of got to find the seam, and you roll it out. Now the crescent dough is divided into little triangles, and the triangles are what we will be wrapping around the apples. Okay, so we got that kind of laid out there. Now what we'll be doing, I'll show you. Grab yourself a little triangle. Whoops, you grabbed a little too extra. And what you'll do is you kind of place the apple right there, and you begin to wrap the dough around the apple. Okay. Now you want to try and cover as much of the apple as possible, so you might have to move the dough a little bit around the apple like that, and kind of pinch it together. See how I'm kind of doing that?
Yes.
And then we will take it and we'll put it into a baking dish, which actually, could you put a little bit of the nonstick cooking spray in there? And so we grease up the baking dish a little bit, and we'll be placing these in the baking dish. Oops, our oven's ready. Our oven, which we'll be cooking it in, will be at 350 degrees. Now, if you want to, I'll give you some apples, and you can help me out with putting the apples in there. Now today we are going to talk a little bit about saints, and this being a good time to talk about it, it being the month of November, which of course we have All Saints Day. Now, All Saints Day is a day in which we remember and we celebrate a lot of the saints that we have in the Catholic Church. Now, Jared, what do you know about the saints? Are you at all familiar? You've heard about the saints before, right?
Yes.
All right. A little bit of a pop quiz there, just checking, making sure your parents didn't lead you astray. Now, what do you know about the saints? I mean, can anybody be a saint? Am I a saint already?
Well, I think anyone can be a saint.
That's true. Anybody can be a saint.
But I don't think you're one already.
Okay, that is good. I'm not, because I'm very much alive. Now, saints in the Catholic Church are people which are seen as being people of great holiness, of great examples to us of what it means to live a Christian, and what it means to live a Catholic life. And the saints can be wonderful examples. Like, do you know any names of any of the saints in particular that you're familiar with or you've heard of?
I know a couple, like Saint Francis, Saint Catherine of Siena, and Saint Gregory.
Okay. Which Saint Francis? Because there's more than one Saint Francis.
Of Assisi.
Ah, very nice. Saint Francis of Assisi, and there's a lot of saints. And of the saints that we have, what's interesting is you can find out details about their life. And they're people who live just kind of like you or I, but they also lived lives of great holiness. And sometimes it was despite a lot of adversity, and sometimes we had ones who were martyred for the faith. And so many of them went through quite a bit. And so for us, they're examples of what we can strive to live as well in our lives, is to try and live lives that are saintly or holy lives, which, we need a little more crescent dough. The butter which we used, I actually melted, and so I put it in the microwave to melt a little bit ago. Now we're going to be pouring that around the dumplings here in just a little bit, which, here you go, I'll give you a triangle to start with. I've been making these for a while, and actually I think I taught some of our youth and young people a while back how to make these apple dumplings. These work really well. They can be frozen after you make them. After we've kind of done all of this, you can easily take them, stick them in your freezer. Most people, though, can't really make it to the freezer because they start eating them. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, there are things that have to happen before you can be named a saint. Do you know what those things are?
2 miracles.
Uh-huh.
And I know you have to be blessed first.
Correct?
I don't know the right.
Let's say we're going to have you as a saint someday. Well, what we would do is we'd look into your life, and we'd look over your whole life, all the things you did, what people knew about you, everything like that, and any details that we could possibly get, and find out, what was her life like, and did she, live a life of holiness, and we'd look at all of that, and we'd look and see all the details of your life, and it would actually be debated as to whether you should be a saint or not. Now, what we have here is we've got a stick of butter, and we've got a cup of sugar. Okay, you can use brown sugar if that's all you have. White sugar is usually better. You mix it together, like so. And I'm going to grab a fork to mix it around. Now, you'll mix it around here like this, and you see kind of how we got a little bit of a kind of a thick mixture forming there. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, what we're going to do with that butter and sugar mixture, once it's all kind of mixed up nice and good, there we go. We will actually take it and we will begin to put it over the dumplings. Kind of like that, okay? And if some falls down between, that's all right. Doesn't matter. The cinnamon. Now, the cinnamon, it's up to you. Normally you can add about, a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of cinnamon. What I oftentimes like to do is I like to sprinkle it on the top, and I kind of eyeball it. And I like to use quite a bit of cinnamon because I like cinnamon. And I think cinnamon is supposed to be somewhat healthy for you. Okay, now once we've got all the cinnamon, we get to what is the secret ingredient. Now, this is one, when my mom first made this for me, she told me, she said, "Jeff, guess what's in it?" And I said, "Well, you got apples, you got dough, you got all this." And then she said, "Well, there's one other thing that's in it." And I could not for the life of me guess. I was like, okay, butter, yeah, sugar, okay. And then she said, "There's still another ingredient." And I said, "I have no idea what it is, Mom." It's Mountain Dew. Now, I know that sounds odd, and you'll think, Mountain Dew, seriously, Father Jeff? It's really good. It really works well in here. So you add about half a cup of Mountain Dew. Now, what you need to do as you're adding that is very carefully pour it around the edges, not pouring it on top of the dumplings. And so you pour it there. And because you don't want to get it on top of the dumplings, you just want it to get it around the edges, because what will happen is this helps to form a really thick kind of caramelly sauce that goes really well once you've fully cooked the dumplings. And you can pour it over there, and it goes really well with a little bit of ice cream or some things like that. We oftentimes like to do ice cream. I get a little bit on the dumpling there. All right, now we'll take that and we will put that in our 350-degree oven, which I wonder if you could do for me, ma'am. Be right there in the lower oven. Now, our next dessert that we're going to make will be the pumpkin pie cake. Now, this dessert you can find online. We'll also post the details of the dessert. But my mom, I remember, used to make this always around Thanksgiving and times like that. What we get is we get a can of pumpkin puree. Now, you don't get the pumpkin puree that's already spiced because you want to really be able to add your own spices to it. So you'll get your pumpkin puree in there. And I tell you what, would you open up the can of the condensed milk? Thank you, ma'am. And you put it all in there. Now, if you want to double it, you can easily double it. You add 2 cans of pumpkin puree, and you double the rest of the ingredients as well. There we go. Put that in there. All right. So we did one big can. It was a 64-ounce can of pumpkin puree. Now, Jared's going to pour in the condensed milk. Doesn't matter which brand you're using. Any brand is fine. And that was one whole can of it. Okay, the next thing is we're going to crack 3 eggs into it. How are you at cracking eggs?
I think I'm pretty good.
All right. Good job, good job. Now, as I was saying earlier, you'll want to add your own spice. Now, you can make your own spice mixture if you would like. Some people will do it out of ground cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, allspice, cinnamon, maybe even some ground cloves. But there's also pumpkin pie spice mix that's out there that you can buy. The one I got is right here. I got it from Pendry's here in Fort Worth. Pendry's is a really nice spice shop where you can find all kinds of great spices and great spice mixtures. And so we will add about, let's add about a tablespoon of that in here. Yes, ma'am, you can. Now, saints are interesting, I think, for us as Catholics, because it's very unique to our faith. And yet, many of us will have devotions to saints. There we go. Perfect, thank you. And the devotion I think many of us have to saints is rooted in the fact that we know about these people's lives, and many of them, we can seek their prayer, especially intercessory prayer. We know that maybe they went through some of the same things we're going through. There's a gentleman here in the parish, and he has a special devotion to St. Peregrine because he's been dealing with cancer. And St. Peregrine had a wound that just would never heal. He lived with that, and so he's actually the patron saint of those who are dealing with cancer. Now, what we will do is we have another one of these lovely things, which, I'll tell you what, if you will spray it with some of the non-stick cooking spray, I would appreciate it. Okay, now we've done that. Now, we do, oops, I almost forgot, we need to add a little bit of brown sugar. So we're going to add about a half a cup of brown sugar. You can either use light brown, golden brown. You could use dark brown if you wanted to, but it's not, oops, is it not open? Oh, there you go. But whichever one you want to use is fine. And so we want to sweeten up this pumpkin mixture some.
How much are we adding?
We're adding a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. How sweet do you want it?
Sweet.
All right, we'll do 3/4 of a cup then. After that mixture, we will pour that into the pan, and then on top of the pan, we're going to take just a yellow cake mix. You can use Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines, whichever you'd like to do, and we'll put that on top. Now, I wonder if you might open that for me. I'm going to mix this up real quick. All right, looking good. Make sure you get the lumps out if there are any lumps in there. Okay. And we will pour that into the pan. All right. This is a great dish for here in the fall, especially for those of y'all who really like pumpkin pie. Okay, now what we're going to do is you're going to sprinkle that on top.
Sprinkle like this, or sprinkle with my hand?
Oh, you can sprinkle it like that if you like. I'm going to pass behind you real quick. There we go, looking good. Now as we top it with the yellow cake mix, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pour a stick of melted butter over the top, and we're going to put some pecans. What we will do is we'll actually bake this at 350 degrees for an hour. The dumplings also, we bake at 350 degrees for an hour. You can, if your oven goes a little bit fast or cooks a little hot, you might keep an eye on it. So as soon as it's bubbling and looks done, then it's done. It'll start to kind of brown on top and look really good. So, go ahead. We'll put the whole thing.
All of it, okay.
Whole thing. I'll put some of these pecans on too. If need be, you can kind of even it out a little bit. There we go. Looking good. All right. Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. And you can add as many pecans as you want. I usually add probably about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. All right, like that. And we'll add the butter. Just kind of stream the butter over the top, trying to get as much of it as you can. So we add the pecans and put this in the oven at 350 degrees for 1 hour, and I hope you join us at the potluck. Thank you. Welcome back to another episode of Feeding Our Faith. As before, I'm Father Jeff, and with me today I have Jared Schlossberg. Sorry.
You want to start over?
Yeah, that's right. Hi, and welcome again to Feeding Our Faith. And today we're doing something a little different. With me, I have Jared. No, I got your mom's name. I got you fine. I only had one. Okay.